In the second part of this tutorial, we're going to go over profiles. So profiles are a way of, I guess, basically making profiles which show the elevation view of whatever object you're trying to represent. And in this case, it's going to be our alignments. So these profiles are going to show the elevation of our alignments along the entire length of them. So I'm just copying my file, so that way I'm working off of a fresh save and have my work back up. And we'll go over how to make profiles in Civil 3D. At this point in the class, you should have already seen what some of these look like in your homework assignments or in class, and we're essentially going to be making those in here. So if you recall from last time, we modeled alignments of the 3 rows, McCormick, Alderman, and Treehouse Drive, and we put them into Civil 3D. And if you followed along with the optional tutorial, you also might have some road labels on them as well. Totally optional, again. So now that we can see the plan view of these alignments, we want to be able to see the profile views of these alignments. And there's very luckily a tool in Civil 3D in your home ribbon called Profile. Pretty self-explanatory in terms of what that's going to do. So we're going to click on this and use the Create Surface Profile to make a profile for an alignment. We have to do this each time for every profile or like every alignment we want to make on it. So you can see this user box, interface box pops up, and in the top left you can select what alignment you want to make a profile of, and on the right you can select the surfaces you want to get an elevation from. So in this file, we're going to start with Alderman Road. So I'm going to use Alderman Road and select the OHL surface. We only have one surface in this drawing file now, but it's very possible to have multiple surfaces in a drawing file, which we will have later. And you can also make profiles for each of those surfaces from one alignment on the same profile view, which is really, really cool. So we're going to add this, and you can see the range. It automatically gets from the start to the end, but you'll see in a couple of minutes here we actually have to mess around with this. And so from here, we can go to add and OK, which we did. So now we're going to draw in profile view. There are some more dialog box options. First one is the profile name. So I'm going to call this Alderman Road South North Profile. You can see there's also a profile view style and a bunch of other things about layers and viewpoints, but this is all stuff that we can kind of go over after we make the profile. So you can go through all of these options by just hitting next if you want to. All of these are pretty accessible afterwards, and then click Create Profile View. So now it's asking us to put it down. This profile view is an object that lives in your drawing space. So you can click anywhere. I recommend picking a side of your site, top left, bottom right, and putting everything together. So I am going to put my profiles here, bottom right of my site, but you can do them wherever you would like. And you can see once I click on them, it makes the profile. This one's quite big, but you can notice on the bottom, it's showing the station number. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right, and so on and so forth. And on the left side, it's showing our elevations. So this is showing a representation of this alignment on the big surface that we have here, OHL surface, that we got from satellite GIS data. So this alignment is showing us if you were to travel horizontally across this alignment, this is the elevation you would encounter. So you can see this really big hill goes from like around 560 to close to 580, so almost 20 feet difference there between the bottom and the top. And that's for Alderman Road. A couple other things you can notice, there's a lot of space above and below this alignment. Extra space. It doesn't start until 560, but it starts at 540. You can see that it goes into negative stationing here, -1 feet, because it gives it some padding. So there's all these things here that we can change about the style. You can see numbers overlapping. So we can kind of play around with this and see what we can do to make this look cleaner. So if we click on our profile, you can see the top ribbon changes to match the object we're looking at. And the two things to look at are profile view properties and the profile properties. We are going to start by going to profile view properties. Profile view properties is where you can change your bounds of your graph, your profile view. You can see here, for example, it's set to an automatic height of 540 to 600. I think that is kind of excessive. I think we could definitely bring that in at least a little bit. I'm going to do 555 to 585, but you can definitely bring it in more than that. So that's the elevation I'm going to set. I can also go to the station tab, and you can see that it has automatic station range selected as 0 to 1600 for me, but as we pointed out, it goes to -1. I don't get it. I really don't. I don't know why it does this. What it's really doing is it's using this range right here in the user specified range, even though we have automatic selected. So I really just encourage you, go to the user specified range, and you can even just copy this over. I'm doing Control C and Control V to do that. So I've copied over it, and even just this, if I hit apply and OK, you'll notice, wow, your profile has shrunk a lot. It's a lot tighter, there's a lot less extra space, and most importantly, the beginning of it represents the beginning of the alignment. The end of it represents the end of the alignment. I'm going to go back to that page right here, Profile View Properties. You can also right click and you can see Profile View Properties here as well. And I'm going to change a couple of other things here. Let's see what I can find. I'm going to go to bands, and you can see that it has elevation bands here. That is kind of associated with this band right here on the bottom. And you can keep it there. It really is fine. Sometimes it's useful if you actually zoom in. It shows you the elevation of the profile at that station number, which is really nice. Especially from a practical like construction standpoint, knowing this could be very helpful. But I don't really need that now, so I am just going to get rid of it here. We can always add it back if we need to. So I'm going to go to the bands, I'm going to click on it, and click this X button to delete it. You can always add it back if you want to. One of the other things you can also do here is change the hatching style. This is something that we're going to go into later in the project. This is going to be deliverable 5 or 6, I think, and we'll go into how we can actually use these to help us. I'm just going to hit apply and OK. You can see that bottom data band got removed. The other thing we can do is go to the other property tab, profile properties, and it asks you to select a profile. It's really weird. If you try to click anywhere in the middle, it doesn't really work. I find it easiest to click on this outline of the profile, and even then you just sometimes have to kind of click around to see what works, what it will select. But okay, it looks like at some point I selected a profile, so I'm just going to enter, and you can see it come up. And here's where you can see just some of the kind of styling that we made, or we had the option to choose as we were making it. So I'm just going to zoom out here so you can see it a little bit better. And I'm going to go to the profile properties. Where is it going to work? There it works. I think I had to click on the line for it to work. So, for example, what if I go to existing ground, hit apply? That's what it looks like right now. Basic. Maybe it looks like this. You can see it's not actually really changing all of that much. Maybe design profile looks different. Yeah, as you can see, it's just changing the kind of like the color and look of this line. It's really not doing too much. So the profile properties isn't something you'll be dealing with a whole lot. So you can mostly ignore that. The other thing to look at is the profile view styles. So if we go over here to the profile view properties, you can see the object style. Right now it's on major grid and HGP. So let's just play around with that and see what it does. For example, if we do full grid, you can see the effects of it. I'm gonna change my view here so you can see this a little bit better, hopefully. So let's go to full grid and then click apply. So you can see how it's showing the full grid. Sounds pretty nice. Let's go to major grid and see what that looks like. The profile view style, see what that does. That one changes it a lot. That one's pretty clean too. So you can see you have all of these different built-in styles into Civil 3D that show you, different ways of representing your profiles. I think right now I'm just gonna go to major grid. I think that looks pretty clean, pretty good. But you're welcome to use what you would like. One important thing to note is that the object styles are kind of like a variable that you can assign to a profile. So multiple profiles can share the same object style, or they can have different object styles. But every object style has a shared set of properties that apply to every profile that has that object style. So what I mean by that is if I had 3 profiles and all of them had this major grid style selected, if I come in here and edit the style and say I update the text size here, the text height, and I apply that, it's going to apply to every single profile that has that style assigned. So just keep that in mind. That also means you have really good control over your profiles. If you have a profile whose text is too big and you have another profile whose text is just right, you can come into the object style and copy your current selection and make a new style from it. That way, if you really need to, every profile you make can have its own style. Just I caution you not to go too overboard because this list is going to get full quickly if you do that. So I can show you one example that you can do here. If you go into this profile view style and you go to the graph tab, you can see this vertical exaggeration here. So we can edit the scaling of the vertical exaggeration. So for example, if I change this vertical scale to be 1 inch is 1 foot, for example, or 1 inch is 2 feet, this should double in height, I believe. So if I hit OK and apply, you can see that vertical scale got up exaggerated. So this exaggeration is something that's really powerful to use, especially on alignments that maybe only, or profiles, sorry, that only vary by 2 or 3 feet over, say, 200 feet, right? Where the line looks almost straight, this vertical exaggeration can help someone visually look at what is different, how the elevation is changing. I'm just going to go back in and reset that to 1 to 4. Just so it's tighter, but use that to your advantage if you have elevation changes that are really, really steep or really, really shallow, depending on how wide your profile is. Now we're going to repeat this for the other 2 roads. So I want you to go through and do this for Treehouse Drive and also do this for McCormick as well. And you can follow along with me through the sped up portion. All right, so you can see here, I've updated or created all 3 of my profiles. One quick note, you can click on a profile and move it with this blue selecting icon on the bottom left corner of every profile. So this is what you should be left with, and you can see all 3 of my profiles here and how different they are. Alderman Road is our largest one and has a very gradual ascent up to around where the intersection is, right? Let's go to station 12 and station 13 and let's see where that is. As you can see, station 12 and 13, that's the peak of the road. And if you've walked along Alderman Road, you know that to be true. This is a big hill going down, and this slopes gently down all the way to Scott Stadium. So we can see that in our profile, and you can see with McCormick and Treehouse Drive, the west side of both of these represents going up O Hill, and the east side is a lot closer to the AFC and the Ken Building and Gilmer, where it's lower. And so we see that with our profiles here as well. Treehouse especially being pretty steep, but that's because it's a smaller access road for parking in dorms. So that is profiles. Make sure you have all three of yours made. Play around with the style as you like. You can see here I forgot to take out the data bands, and they look kind of messy. So you can change the data bands, or you can change kind of like the text size and the height and color and everything, but it's up to you. Just make sure all of them are there and all of them are legible.